Pierogies are a traditional Polish dumpling that's served during the festive season. And my grandma used to make them all the time, and that's why they're special to me, and that's why I want to share it with you guys. Hi, my name is Jakub Czyszczon from Garrison Restaurant here in Austin, Texas, and today we're going to be making some pierogies. To start things out, we're going to peel some russet potatoes. I chose russets because of the starch content. You can replace it with an Idaho or any potato like that. I would not use Yukon Golds or anything of that nature. So now that we're on this last potato, we're going to put them into a large pot. Now that our potatoes are cooking, we're gonna start prepping our onions. You can use any type of white onion. I prefer a sweeter yellow onion. You can use a white onion. I would definitely not use red onion. You want the mixture to be very smooth, creamy, and white. A lot of caramelized onions in Polish food. Now that we've peeled them, we're just gonna slice them. It doesn't have to be perfect. They're all gonna get caramelized. So as long as they're evenly sliced, it's fine. And then we're gonna caramelize these in some butter, and we're going to salt them early so that you can release as much water as possible, and it will caramelize faster. So now that our onions are cut, we're going to start caramelizing them in a Dutch oven with some butter. I prefer to use a Dutch oven because the heat distribution is very even. Now that I've added my butter, onions, and salt, I'm just gonna stir this up and make sure everything's nicely coated until the onions start to caramelize. Make sure that you always scrape the bottom because that's really where all of the caramelization happens. And we're just gonna keep stirring it and cooking this down for about 30 minutes. When I caramelize onions, I like to leave the lid off the pot. It leads to faster evaporation of the water in the onions, leading to a more even caramelization. With the onions and the potatoes cooking, we can make our dough. We're gonna go right into our dough. So we're gonna start off with some all-purpose flour. And then with our fingers, we're gonna make a little well, just as if we're making pasta. We're gonna start off with our egg. We're gonna put our butter in here, and we're gonna put our salt. So now we're gonna start incorporating the egg and butter, and very slowly, we're going to add our hot water. This was a trick that my grandma taught me. At a certain point, we're gonna switch to our hands. Your water needs to be hot enough to where the dough feels warm still, once it's completely kneaded through. You'll know the dough is ready when you notice all the flour is hydrated. We're going to knead it for 3 to 4 minutes, and then we're going to wrap it and let it rest. Wrapping is very important because of the hot water and the temperature of the dough. The water from the dough will continue to evaporate and dry the dough out if it is not wrapped in plastic. Our onions are looking good. They're caramelized. They're a nice dark brown, almost amber color. And our potatoes are also ready. Those have been boiling for about 30 minutes. I think it's time to make our filling. I like to let my potatoes steam off a little bit, and we're gonna dump this into our bowl, and we're gonna mix it up. I'm gonna add about 3/4 of my caramelized onions and reserve the rest for garnishing the pierogies once those are done cooking. So caramelized onions make everything better. And now we can add our yogurt, season with salt and pepper. You want to season pretty aggressively, and then we're going to mash this into a smooth filling. So the consistency should be fairly thick. Once this cools down before we fill our pierogies, it will tighten up a little bit, and it will make it easier to pinch and roll the actual pierogies out and to fold them in. Now that the filling is done, we're gonna put this in the fridge to cool down and set, and we'll roll out our dough for the pierogies. We're gonna cut it into quarters to make it more manageable, and always make sure, once you've cut it, the dough that you are not rolling out in the plastic wrap. All right, so let's start rolling out the dough. We're gonna put a pretty generous amount of flour on our work surface. You'll notice the dough is very soft. It should still be warm. The dough should be held in a warm place while it's resting. But you will notice as you start rolling it out and the dough starts drying out, it will toughen up a little bit and make it easier to roll your pierogies. You want it fairly thin, not too thin. So we're gonna roll this out to about the thickness of a quarter, about 3 millimeters. You still wanna have some bite from the dough. You don't want it to just be too thin to work with as well. Now that we have our dough rolled out, I'm gonna grab the filling and we can start making some pierogies. We're gonna punch our pierogies. You can use a glass for this. You could use a ring cutter. Anything that's a circle and should be about 3 inches. And you can re-roll this excess dough just as long as you are keeping it wrapped. Now that we have our circles, we're going to put in a fair amount of filling, like so. And next we're gonna I have a little bit of water here, and we're going to put it on one side, and then we're going to fold in half, and we're gonna seal the edge. Working from one side to the other so that you're also pushing the excess air out inside. And you should have a beautiful crescent shape like this. And what I like to do, ensure I have a good seal and it looks very nice, is to take a fork and we're just gonna press the outside, making sure that you have a nice seal. And then I'm going to flour a cutting board or a sheet tray, anything that we can reserve these pierogies on. Be very careful at this point to not over flour the dumpling, or it will dry out too much and it will crack, and in the boiling water they'll just fall apart. Now that we've finished our pierogies, over here I have a pot of boiling salted water, and we're going to gently place our pierogies into the water, and we're going to cook those until they start to float. It's approximately 3 to 4 minutes. While these pierogies are cooking, I'm gonna add some butter and the caramelized onions that we reserved into a saute pan so that we can just transfer the pierogies directly into the pan after they're done cooking. I'm gonna start this going over medium heat. All right, so pierogies are done. They're floating. They've been in here for about 4 minutes. We're going to transfer them with the strainer directly out of our water and into our saute pan that has the butter and caramelized onions. All right, so now that we've transferred the pierogies into this pan and coated nicely with butter and caramelized onions, it's time to plate. We're just gonna serve this kind of family style, a little bit in a festive way, as they would be served in any Polish household. Once the pierogies are in our bowl, we can top them off with the remainder of the caramelized onions. All right, now that these are plated up, it's time to try them and see if they're as good as I remember my grandma making them. Yep. Yeah, those are good. So these just really remind me of Christmas and the festive season, being with family, and just kind of keeping Polish tradition alive through food. And I think that's just kind of why we all do it, why I love to cook personally, and it just brings back those really good memories. And once again, I'm Jakub Czyszczon from Garrison Restaurant here in Austin, Texas. I hope to see you guys soon. We're good.